In the earliest age, in the time when the world breathed differently, when shadows were not merely the absence of light, but living echoes of ancient beings, there existed a story that shaped all life in Africa. A story so old that even the elders only whispered fragments of it. A story hidden not in books, not in carvings, not in temples, but in the behavior and instincts of the people themselves. A story about food, but not a story of hunger. A story of flesh, but not a story of humans or animals. A story of roots and leaves, but not one about farming. It is the story of the forbidden kinship, the spiritual bond between humans and certain animals and plants that bore silent echoes of humanity itself. Those who guard the ancient traditions say that the world once had a different shape, not the round shape we know today, nor the wide continents mapped in perfect lines, but a world softer, gentler, woven together as tightly as fabric under a master loom's loom. In that primordial world, humans, animals, and plants were not separate kingdoms. They were siblings, not metaphorically, but truly. For before creation fully manifested into the physical, all beings were made of the same luminous clay, the same living breath the Creator had exhaled into the void. In that era, before the first fracture, everything spoke one language, not of words, but of essence. A lion could feel the heartbeat of a man as though it was its own. A tree could sense a woman's sorrow as though rain had touched its leaves. A fish could taste the fear of a hunter across the surface of the water. Everything was intertwined because everything was born from the original pulse, the primal energy that the wise called Okiri Nundu, the thread of life. There was no eating because nothing died. There was no hunting because nothing feared. Life flowed in circular harmony, and the world glowed not with sunlight, but with the shared awareness of every being. But harmony is a fragile thing. The ancestors spoke of how desire entered the world like a crack in a perfect drum. It didn't come as a monster, nor as a god, nor as a spirit. It came quietly, like a whisper inside the hearts of the primordial siblings. Humans desired strength. Animals desired freedom. Plants desired growth and dominance of the soil. These desires twisted the thread of life, pulling it in different directions until the shared language of essence began to fade. The first humans, realizing their new consciousness, began to claim superiority. They said they were shaped closest to the image of the Creator and therefore deserved dominion. Some animals rejected this, believing that humans had misunderstood creation. For in those days, animals stood upright, spoke in tones humans could hear, and possessed wisdom equal to any elder. The lion argued that strength was divine. The elephant believed memory was sacred. The crocodile believed endurance was the truest gift. Even the small creatures, the chameleon, the tortoise, the ibis, spoke with clarity.
The plants, hearing the quarrels, stirred with their own desires. They grew taller, their leaves sharper, their roots deeper. And many began to claim that they were the true foundation of the world, for without them, nothing could stand, breathe, or live. Their voices rose in chorus from the forests, whispering through vines, rustling through grass, trembling through roots. When the quarrels reached their height, the world shook. Thunder erupted not from the sky, but from the ground. Lightning did not strike downward, but spiraled upward like a serpent of light. The oceans turned black for 7 nights. The winds tore leaves from trees so violently that forests stood naked like wounded soldiers. And then it happened, the event that would shape all taboos, all forbidden foods, and all sacred creatures for the rest of time, the first fracture. The ancestors described it as the moment the original pulse cracked like a broken calabash. The luminous essence that connected all beings shattered into millions of fragments. Some fragments lodged deep inside humans, others escaped into the hearts of animals, and a great many sank into the roots, seeds, fruits, and leaves of plants still forming their shapes. When the world settled, the unity was gone. Humans could no longer hear the speech of animals. Animals no longer understood the silent language of plants, and plants no longer felt the emotions of humans. Each kingdom had become separate, yet the fragments of the original pulse remained buried in all of them. And that was the beginning of the forbidden kinship, the invisible bond between certain humans and certain beings, animals or plants that carried their missing spiritual fragments. The Spirit Fathers, ancient beings who existed between matter and energy, descended into the world to restore balance. Their forms shifted like smoke, their eyes glowed like embers buried in ash, and their voices carried the weight of creation. They appeared to the first tribes, speaking a law that would echo through centuries. What carries a piece of you must never enter your mouth. They explained that every human lineage had lost a part of its soul during the fracture. That lost fragment now lived inside a specific animal or plant. To consume that being would be to swallow one's own spirit, tearing destiny apart. Families, clans, and entire ethnic groups were assigned sacred guardians: the leopard, the python, the tortoise, the parrot, the crocodile, the palm tree, the kola nut, the yam, the oil bean, the bitter leaf. These were not random assignments, but spiritual mappings, reflections of what each group had lost. The leopard held the courage of one clan. The python held the destiny of another. The palm tree held the prosperity of a third. The yam held the creative spark of a fourth. The parrot held the ancestral memory of a fifth. The ibis held the spiritual intuition of a sixth. Every people had their forbidden mirror, the being that held what they lost.
The first generations obeyed these sacred restrictions unquestioningly. The consequences of breaking them were immediate and devastating. A man who killed the animal tied to his lineage would feel his strength leave him. A woman who tasted her clan's forbidden root crop would fall into visions of ancestors crying out in pain. A child who unknowingly touched a forbidden creature would dream for 7 nights of a world before the fracture. A terrifying experience that often left them silent for weeks. Because in that old world, taboos were not symbolic. They were not cultural rules. They were literal spiritual laws, like gravity or fire. The forbidden foods held human fragments, pieces of the soul, and consuming them disrupted the balance between the living and the ancestral. Centuries passed, tribes expanded, kingdoms rose, empires formed: Mali, Benin, Congo, Kush, Songhai. Each carried fragments of the old law in their customs. The taboo foods became sacred identities. They were woven into initiation rites, funerals, harvest festivals, and naming ceremonies. The people no longer remembered the full story of the first fracture, but they remembered the rules. Do not eat this. Do not touch that animal. This creature is your brother. This plant is your mother. But the reason was fading like a footprint in sand. Then came the age of disruption. Foreign winds blew across Africa. New religions arrived. New gods, new books, new rulers. The shrines lost their keepers. Priests died without apprentices. The old myths were mocked and dismissed as foolish superstition. The sacred animals were hunted for meat or sport. The forbidden plants were uprooted, eaten, or exported. The ancient relationships between humans and their spiritual mirrors were broken with laughter. But something strange happened. Even as people forgot the stories, the consequences continued. Families that abandoned their taboos found misfortune haunting their footsteps. Hunters who killed forbidden animals suffered strange accidents. Farmers who uprooted taboo plants saw their crops wither. Children who ate forbidden foods fell sick in ways no medicine could understand. The elders shook their heads, saying only, "Some things are older than memory." And so the taboos persisted, not as beliefs, but as instincts. A mother tells her daughter, "We do not eat this." A father warns his son, "We do not touch that animal." When asked why, the answer is always the same. because our ancestors said so. But the ancestors did not merely say so. They screamed it, they wept it, they carved it into the spiritual fabric of the world. They pleaded with their descendants to remember the truth. Some food does not feed the body, it steals the soul. For the forbidden creatures and plants still carry the luminous fragments of the original pulse, the lost pieces of human destiny that broke during the first fracture. When humans consume those beings, the world remembers the ancient wound. The balance shifts, the spirit weakens. This is why even today, across Africa, in places untouched by modern roads, in villages where the night is darker and the ancestors walk closer to the earth, people still whisper warnings about certain meals. Not because of health, not because of culture, not because of superstition, but because something deep within them, older than language, older than history, older than blood, recognizes the echo of the forbidden kinship. Somewhere deep in creation, the world still remembers the original pulse. It remembers the harmony before the first fracture. It remembers that humans were once whole. And it remembers the moment that wholeness shattered into millions of fragments. Fragments now scattered in creatures that walk, fly, crawl, swim, and grow from the earth. Fragments humans must never consume. Fragments that still belong to the human soul. This is the forgotten secret of Africa's culinary taboos, a spiritual warning carved into the core of existence. Not everything that grows is food. Not everything that breathes is meat. Some things carry a part of you, and to eat them is to devour yourself. The world has forgotten the story, but the story has not forgotten the world.
If you enjoyed this journey into the forgotten and the hidden, don't leave without subscribing. Your support helps this channel uncover more mysteries, more ancient truths, and more stories buried in time. Hit the subscribe button and join me as we continue unlocking the secrets of our world.